Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca and welcome back to... Okay, I gotta take this thing off, it doesn't feel right. It's finally time for another counter-argument video. Today I'm talking about John Watson and the argument that he's straight and therefore would never be interested in a relationship with Sherlock. To those who think that, allow me to introduce you to the beautiful world of bisexuality. It has one rocking color scheme. Now it makes sense that the writers of BBC Sherlock would want to include a bisexual character, since the LGB Representation Studies conducted in 2009, around the time Sherlock was being commissioned, found that respondents felt that there was a significant lack of bisexual representation in the media. It's not just on the BBC, there aren't that many bisexual characters anywhere. So it would be really meaningful to a lot of people if a strong, interesting character like John Watson was bisexual, and thankfully for everyone, he is. So I'm going to walk through the evidence of John's bisexuality on the show, and then at the end I'll address some of the arguments people lob against the idea that John is bi, using everything I'll have covered up to that point to disprove it. So one of the ways the writers enforce John's sexuality is through the symbolism of his profession. John Watson is an army doctor, filling what at first seem like contradictory roles together naturally. John is most happy when he can embrace all of himself this way. He's unhappy when he tries to hide part of himself because he thinks that's what he should do. John is shown at different points in the show pretending to just be a doctor, which usually goes alongside him being in a relationship with a woman and hiding his sexuality. For this reason, someone referring to John as a doctor can be taken as shorthand for heteronormativity and the perception that he's straight. While there are also some parallels between John's time in and longing for the war and the attraction he feels for men, it's important to note that in the war, John was an army doctor, and so part of what he misses is being his authentic self. Again, being in the military and being a doctor are just shorthand. Bisexual people are not half one thing and half another, and John is, again, most happy when he isn't pretending like he can just be one thing or the other. So let's start in A Study in Pink with John's war flashbacks. We know from a bit later on in the episode that John isn't haunted by the war, he misses it.
You're not haunted by the war, Dr. Watson. You miss it.
Knowing that, his reaction to his dream is a bit strange. That reaction would make sense for a man suffering from PTSD, but we know that John isn't.
Your therapist thinks it's post-traumatic stress disorder. Fire her. She's got it the wrong way around. You're under stress right now and your hand is perfectly steady.
So why is he so sad and broken remembering the war? Two reasons. As John will say in a few minutes, he feels this huge void in his life. Nothing is happening to him.
Nothing happens to me.
So he misses the action and sense of purpose that the war gave him. But there's also something else. In one of John's blog entries, he specifically refers to one of his friends getting married as something happening to him. So part of what John is missing is a romantic connection. Specifically, a romantic connection to a man, because that's one of the many things John lost in the war. His relationship with James Sholto. I'll be talking more about the specific coding of that in a few minutes when we get there, but for now, stealing an idea from Stacy, John has trust issues but not PTSD, so what else might have caused him to develop them? Either his father or a failed male-on-male relationship. The knowledge that the army is tied to John's feelings for men and his acceptance of his own sexuality adds a lot more weight to this scene, and it makes what eventually does happen to John even more fitting. He meets Sherlock Holmes.
Who's the first?
Now let's look at Sherlock's first attempts to appeal to John in A Study in Pink. He does this by letting John know that he knows everything about him, including his profession.
I know you're an army doctor and you've been invalided home from Afghanistan.
The fact that John was invalided home again suggests that his separation from this place where he felt comfortable being himself was traumatic and unhealthy for him. Skipping ahead to the next day, Sherlock appeals to John by acknowledging that he's not just a doctor, but an army doctor.
You're a doctor. In fact, you're an army doctor.
Sherlock's proposal isn't having John just fight alongside him as a soldier, but also him coming across injuries that he can mend.
Seen a lot of injuries then. Violent deaths.
Oh, yes.
Bit of trouble too, I bet.
Of course, yes.
John would be equally unhappy trying to be just a soldier as he is when he tries to be just a doctor. Sherlock knows this. With Sherlock, John can be himself, and it thrills him.
Want to see some more?
Oh, God, yes.
Later in the episode, Mycroft vets John to see if he's suitable to be a part of Sherlock's life, specifically in a romantic context, which is clear from lines like this.
And since yesterday you've moved in with him and now you're solving crimes together. Might we expect a happy announcement by the end of the week?
He really wants there to be a happy announcement. He focuses in on the soldier aspect of John.
Yes. The bravery of the soldier.
He tries to push John towards Sherlock by equating a life with Sherlock with life in the war, telling him subtly that Sherlock can give him everything he's missing.
When you walk with Sherlock Holmes, you see the battlefield. You've seen it already, haven't you? You're not haunted by the war, Dr. Watson. You miss it. Welcome back.
He insists that John choose a side.
Time to choose a side, Dr. Watson.
Being told to pick a side is something that bi people hear a lot. Thankfully, Sherlock never makes a similar statement. Now let's take a step back for a second and go back to the surface layer. Because symbolism is great, but there are some very obvious indicators that John is bi. Consider the fact that John flirts with both Sherlock and Anthea in the same episode and in similar ways.
Hey, do you ever get any free time?
Oh yeah, lots.
Do you have a boyfriend? Which is fine, by the way.
I know it's fine.
Yes, we met earlier on this evening.
Right, okay.
There's also this line at Angelo's.
What do real people have, then, in their real lives?
Friends? People they know, people they like, people they don't like. Girlfriends, boyfriends.
For a long time, that line was interpreted as John trying to subtly hint that he had guessed that Sherlock wasn't straight, or at least address that it was a possibility. But that doesn't make sense in context. John is surprised when Sherlock says girlfriends aren't his area.
Girlfriend? No, not really my area.
All right.
Recently, people have started interpreting people to mean John, and while I haven't looked at all of the instances of this, it's definitely what makes the most sense here. Look again at the way John looks down and away, like he's embarrassed.
People they know, people they like, people they don't like. Girlfriends, boyfriends.
Because that's what he's had in his life. Girlfriends and boyfriends. Having implied that he's had boyfriends and learning that girlfriends aren't Sherlock's area, he decides to take the plunge.
All right. Do you have a boyfriend? Which is fine, by the way.
I know it's fine.
So you've got a boyfriend?
No.
Right, okay. You're unattached, like me. Fine. Good.
He immediately backs out when it looks like Sherlock isn't interested because he's very insecure about his sexuality, for reasons I'll discuss in a few minutes.
John, I think you should know that I consider myself married to my work, and while I'm flattered by your interest, I'm really not looking for anything.
No, I'm not asking. No.
But do you remember Irene's line about disguise always being a self-portrait? John's cover is a bit revealing.
I'm just saying, it's all fine.
Yeah, it is. In The Blind Banker, we get some hints that John trying to settle down and be a doctor is synonymous with him pretending to be straight.
You're, well, you're a bit overqualified.
We know that John ends up dating Sarah, however briefly, and that they're flirting in their first interview. So their discussion here is also about a potential relationship between them. Sarah thinks it wouldn't appeal to John.
Might be a bit mundane for you.
John tries to insist otherwise.
No, mundane is good sometimes. Mundane works.
What's her objection, though?
It says here you're a soldier.
And a doctor.
Sarah points out that John wouldn't be satisfied because he's a soldier, Reid attracted to men, but John points out that he's also a doctor, Reid attracted to women. Sarah is right, this particular job is too mundane, and John really was only taking it so he could pretend to be something he's not, so things don't work out. John goes through quite a few girlfriends very quickly who neither he nor Sherlock can tell apart.
No, Sarah was the doctor, and then there was the one with the spots, and then the one with the nose, and then who was after the boring teacher?
Nobody.
Jeanette! Ah, process of elimination.
I'll walk your dog for you. Hey, I've said it now. I'll even walk.
I don't have a dog.
No, because that was the last one. Okay.
Jesus.
The reason is obvious. John is way too busy pining over Sherlock to have any energy for a relationship with a woman.
57?
Sorry, what?
57 of those texts, the ones I've heard. Do you have a reply?
Irene, who makes a living on knowing what people like, instantly picks up on John's attraction to Sherlock.
Somebody loves you. Well, if I had to punch that face, I'd avoid your nose and teeth too.
Could you put something on, please? Anything at all? Napkin.
Why? Are you feeling exposed?
She also knows that he's attracted to her.
So I think John knows where to look.
No, I think he knows exactly where. Not sure about you.
Of course, the big indicator of John's bisexuality in this episode comes in the Battersea scene. John finally lets out all of his jealous rage when he's confronted with Irene alone.
What do I say?
What do you normally say? You've texted him a lot.
You flirted with Sherlock Holmes?
At him. He never
Now,
replies.
Sherlock always replies to everything. He's Mr. Punchline. He will outlive God trying to have the last word.
Does that make me special?
I don't know, maybe.
Again, Irene knows what people like and picks up on it.
You jealous?
We're not a couple.
Yes, you are.
It's a sore spot for John, because they're not a couple, however much he'd like them to be. John is defensive about his sexuality anyway, and he can't stand Irene, so he really doesn't want her knowing this about him. So he deflects again, but Irene easily bypasses it.
Who the hell knows about Sherlock Holmes? But for the record, if anyone out there still cares, I'm not actually gay.
Well, I am. Look at us both.
I discussed in the video on this episode that Irene is saying this as a ploy to get John to relate to her, so lies and says that she can also relate to being attracted to multiple genders. And when Irene says, "look at us both," equating her feelings for Sherlock to John's feelings for Sherlock, John says nothing.
Look at us both.
Sherlock overhears this conversation and John is distraught. He tries to go to Sherlock to explain because he doesn't want to upset him with this, but Irene holds him back, makes him second guess his desire to have a conversation.
I don't think so. Do you?
Of course, he does try again later, but he frames the conversation around Sherlock's feelings for Irene rather than his feelings for Sherlock, because he's still scared.
So she's alive then. How are we feeling about that?
Happy New Year, John.
Do you think you'll be seeing her again?
In The Hounds of Baskerville, we get some hints of why John might be so afraid of his sexuality. Let's consider for a minute John's age. He's in his 40s, and so grew up in the 80s, during the AIDS crisis, when gay and bisexual men were specifically targeted and vilified. They were treated like they were dirty or less than human. Remembering that the army relates to John and his sexuality, let's look closer at Major Barrymore, the disapproving older conservative man who idolizes Margaret Thatcher, who had terrible policies about LGBT people. Barrymore likes her because of his father.
2, 3, 4, 5 separate biographies of Thatcher. Mid-1980s at a guess, father and son, Barrymore Senior, medals, Distinguished Service Order.
That date, I'd say Falklands veteran.
Right, so Thatcher's looking more likely bet than Churchill.
So let's consider the influence that John's father might have had on him, especially if he was similarly conservative, and possibly abusive or alcoholic. John certainly doesn't have any kind of relationship with his father if he is still alive, and this would explain why, and why his 2 children are so messed up. Coming from that kind of background, it would make sense that John would have a lot of complicated feelings about his sexuality. John also demonstrates a lot of attraction to men in this episode, mostly to Sherlock, who he keeps desperately ogling.
You being all mysterious with your cheekbones and... You can't actually believe that you saw some kind of monster. Yeah, right, good.
But he also makes eyes at lions, and believe it or not, this was actually the one that convinced me years ago. In the episode we got, John checking out lions is pretty subtle.
Your ID showed up straight away, Miss.
So textually, the fact that this conversation takes place in an army base is a bit revealing, especially when John remarks how long it's been, trying a bit too hard to sound casual.
Haven't pulled rank in ages.
Enjoy it?
Oh, yeah.
But let's pull out some supplementary materials for this. Bam! The Sherlock Chronicles includes lots of interesting information about the show, including multiple deleted scenes, most of which appear to have been deleted because they made TJLC too obvious. In one of them, John asks lions out using a similar phrase to what he used on Anthea in A Study in Pink.
Do you ever get any free time?
There was also a deleted scene where lions went out onto the moor and saw the flashing sex lights. That would make John and lions the only characters to see them.
Oh, Mr. Sullivan, you've done it again!
It was probably too early to give that much away. There isn't much reference to John's sexuality in the next episode, except for John vaguely referring to his past with Sholto.
I mean that you're not exactly a private detective anymore. You're this far from famous.
Oh, it'll pass.
It better pass. If the press will turn, Sherlock, they always turn, and they'll turn on you.
I'll get back to that in a second. It's in Series 3 where things start getting really obvious. John getting engaged to Mary is specifically framed as him moving on from Sherlock.
Well, I've got some news.
Oh, God. Is it serious?
What? No, I'm not ill. I'm moving on.
You're emigrating.
Nope. No, I've met someone.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, we're getting married. Well, I'm going to ask anyway.
So soon after Sherlock.
Well, yes.
It's no wonder Mrs. Hudson makes the assumptions she does.
What's his name?
Then there's the fact that Mary, like Sarah, is tied to John's work as a doctor, and we're shown that John doesn't find satisfaction there because he's trying to be something he's not.
Mr. Summerson.
Right.
Undescended testicle.
Right. Hi.
Mrs. Reeves. Thrush.
Right.
Oh my God. I am so sorry. Oh my God. Please, it's fine.
Of course, the most obvious evidence of John's bisexuality is in the sign of 3 with the introduction of Major James Sholto, John's previous commander. Well, ex. Since I already have the chronicles out, I'm just going to point out that in an earlier version of the scene on the bench, Sherlock referred to Sholto as John's ex-best friend, whatever he was. Again, most of these scenes were cut because they were too obvious. Mary knows that John's history with Sholto upsets Sherlock, and so she's sure to rub it in.
They're such good friends. Why does he barely even mention him?
He mentions him all the time to me. He never shuts up about him.
About him? Mm-hmm. It's definitely him that he talks about.
Mm-hmm. John says he's the most unsociable man he's ever met.
He is. He's the most unsociable.
And when we cut to John and Sholto, there's an obvious familiarity there.
Very, very glad to see you, sir. I know you don't really do this sort of thing.
Well, I do for old friends, Watson. John, it's good to see you.
You too.
Back to Sherlock and Mary equates her relationship with John as his wife to John's relationships both with Sholto and Sherlock.
Oh, Sherlock. Neither of us were the first, you know.
Like, that's blatant! Since The Bloody Guardsman is another case about soldiers, it makes sense it would have more information about John's sexuality. It starts with that awkward conversation on the bench. Sherlock very carefully broaches the topic.
So why don't you see him anymore?
Who?
Your previous commander, Sholto.
Previous command.
I meant ex.
Previous suggests that I currently have a command.
Which you don't.
Which I don't.
Of course you don't. He was decorated, wasn't he? War hero.
Not to everyone. He led a team of crows into battle.
Crows?
New recruits. A standard procedure, break the new boys in. But it went wrong. They all died. He was the only survivor. The press and the families gave him hell. He gets more death threats than you.
This makes John's concern with the press and the Reichenbach fall finally make sense. He'd seen it happen to another loved one before. John sarcastically says that he's totally changing the topic when he starts talking about his relationship with Sherlock instead of his relationship with Sholto, equating those two relationships.
Changing the subject completely. You know it won't alter anything, right? Me and Mary getting married. We'll still be doing all this.
Oh, good.
If you were worried.
Wasn't worried.
A few minutes later, John goes on to equate the feelings he has for Mary to the feelings he has for Sherlock.
The thing about Mary is she has completely turned my life around. Changed everything. But for the record, over the last few years, there are 2 people who have done that, and the other one is a complete dickhead.
It's all fine. John goes inside the base and meets another angry major representing his father. He presents himself as a captain, as he truly is, and is met with derision. Keep in mind that John was given the status of captain because he's an army doctor.
No, sir, I'm Captain John Watson, 5th Northumberland Fusiliers.
Retired. You could be a used car salesman now, for all I know.
Kinklock pointed out in her meta on the scene that John looks weirdly devastated by that comment, so it makes much more sense if something about this man reminds him of his father. This father figure cannot accept John as who he is.
No, let me take a look, sir. I'm a doctor.
What? Sergeant, arrest this man.
What? No, I'm a doctor.
You're a doctor now, too.
In this scene, though, John gets to stand up to him and uses his skills as an army doctor to save Bainbridge's life.
Major, please, I'm John Watson, 5th Northumberland Fusiliers. 3 years in Afghanistan, a veteran of Kandahar, Helmand and Bart's bloody hospital. Let me examine this body. Sherlock?
Hmm?
He's still breathing.
Oh, my God. What do we do?
Now give him a scarf. What? Quickly, now. Call an ambulance.
What?
Call an ambulance now. Do it! Nurse, press here, hard.
Nurse?
Yeah, I'm making do. Keep pressure on that wound. Stephen, stay with me.
Sherlock thinks that John embracing his entire self is the most fascinating thing he's ever seen, even more wonderful than the best locked room mystery he's ever come across.
The most perfect locked room mystery of which I am aware. There was one feature, and only one feature, of interest in the whole of this baffling case, and quite frankly, it was the usual. John Watson, who, while I was trying to solve a murder, instead saved a life.
I'm going to be talking about this way more in the video on the sign of 3, but I have to at least give a passing mention to the knee grope. Like, look at this. It's a thing of beauty.
I don't mind.
We know you don't. Towards the end of the episode, when Sholto is about to die, he himself equates his relationship with John to Sherlock's, showing that if John has feelings for one, then he certainly had feelings for the other.
Mr. Holmes, you and I are similar, I think.
Yes, I think we are.
When Sholto lets John in, John doesn't charge in like a soldier, but offers to mend him, like a doctor. Again showing that the problem is John hiding part of himself.
I believe I am in need of medical attention.
I believe I'm your doctor.
In that moment, he's once again his most authentic self. In his last vow, we get the most blatantly concrete tie between John's time in the war and his feelings for men. John has a sex dream about the war and Sherlock.
Seen a lot of injuries then. Violent deaths.
Enough for a lifetime.
Want to see some more?
Oh, God, yes.
The game is on.
He leaps out of bed thinking it's Sherlock at the door, only it's not him.
I know it's early. Really, I'm sorry.
John doesn't find satisfaction in his life pretending to just be a doctor. He's clearly miserable.
He's the drugs one, yeah? Look, is it Sherlock Holmes you want? Because I've not seen him in ages.
About a month.
Who is Sherlock Holmes?
See? That does happen.
There is nothing the matter with me. Imagine I said that without shouting.
Later, when Sherlock is talking to Mary in the empty houses, he refers to her as the doctor's wife and equates that life with boredom.
Go on, show me. The doctor's wife must be a little bit bored by now.
That mundane lifestyle doesn't cut it for John. He's attracted to danger, and dangerous people. Sherlock says as much himself.
You were a doctor who went to war. John, you are addicted to a certain lifestyle. You're abnormally attracted to dangerous situations and people, so is it truly such a surprise that the woman you fall in love with conforms to that pattern?
John doesn't deny that he's attracted to dangerous people. He only asks why Mary is like that.
But she wasn't supposed to be like that. Why is she like that?
So then, who are the dangerous people he's been attracted to? The only two possibilities we've met are Sherlock and Sholto, and he doesn't deny being attracted to them. He chose someone he thought would be safer, who wouldn't break his heart the way Sholto and Sherlock have. And again, his attraction to dangerous people like Sholto and Sherlock is equated to the attraction he has for his wife. Now, with all of that established, let me deal with a few of the specific arguments you'll come across. John is married and he says all the time that he's straight. Actually, he never has. He has said he's not gay, but you should know at this point that that's not the same thing. And he's only said he's not gay twice. A lot less than people tend to think. He says it once to Irene in Battersea when she's too close to knowing his feelings, but it's immediately undercut by John remaining silent when Irene equates their feelings.
I'm not actually gay.
Well, I am. Look at us both.
He says it once more to Mrs. Hudson, when she won't believe that he wasn't dating Sherlock. He's there trying to move on from that relationship, not rehash all of his regrets. And this one is also undercut, this time by Sherlock sighing in exasperation.
Live and let live. That's my motto.
Listen to me. I am not gay.
His denials there are situational, because he's very defensive about his sexuality. I think it's better if he's straight with an exception. Whether you're trying to be or not, that kind of thinking is extremely homophobic. John's love for Sherlock would not somehow be more pure if Sherlock was the only man he had feelings for. John being attracted to men does not diminish the importance of his feelings for Sherlock. In fact, you could easily say that John finding a relationship that allows him to embrace part of his identity that he's kept hidden for so long is even more meaningful. And we definitely know, because of the inclusion of Sholto and the deleted scenes with lions, that Sherlock is not the only man that John has been attracted to, because he's bi. Why isn't he out then? The fact that he's closeted is harmful and bad representation. Again, you have to consider when John was born and what life was like for bisexual men in the 80s. The writers, being in that age group themselves, would definitely take this into account, especially Mark Gatiss, who lived through the AIDS crisis as a gay man. Imagine being a teenager at that time and hearing the hate spewed at people like you. Imagine having a conservative father who thought people like you were disgusting. Imagine having your gay sister probably disowned. It'd be really hard to open up about your sexuality after that. But again, John does allude to his sexuality at least once with Sherlock.
What do real people have, then, in their real lives?
Girlfriends, boyfriends?
And again, he doesn't deny his attraction to men when it's pointed out to him in a way he can't dodge around.
Look at us both.
Why is she like that?
And what's more, plenty of people don't come out until later in life, and seeing a bisexual character go on that journey from self-hatred to acceptance is really liberating for a lot of people. I know John's journey helped me a lot when I was coming to terms with my sexuality. And finally, but isn't he just gay? This one does have some foundation on the show, depending on how you look at it. It's very possible to make the argument that the writers have focused so much on showing that John's relationships with women don't fulfill him the same way as his relationship with Sherlock, that it almost starts to look like John is forcing himself to be in relationships just because he thinks that's what he should do, that really he just likes men. I would say that's possibly fair. But even with as much as they've dismissed John's relationships with women as unfulfilling, plenty of people still manage to think he's straight. It's very clear from things like how often John's feelings for women are equated to his feelings for men, and the bi pride lights during the stag night.
Quick, one more. He mustn't see.
And again during John's wedding dance.
Really?
That bisexuality is what they're going for. The lack of fulfillment that John finds in his relationships with women can easily be explained by the fact that he's in love with someone else, Sherlock, and that John is always hiding who he is in these relationships. The contents of those BBC reports just solidifies John being bisexual as their true intent, whether they've done it truly successfully or not. I do think we can expect John to explicitly confirm that he's bi at some point in the future. Until then, you may hate me, but it ain't no lie. John is bye, 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 bye. Wanna be a fool for you. Just another player in your game for two. Gotta have 90s references sometimes. You know, I really enjoyed making this. I feel like in my episode coverages, because it's so much harder to understand Sherlock in series 1 and 2, I end up focusing on him. But I love John. I miss talking about John. That's one of the main reasons I'm really looking forward to series 3. I get to explain him a bit more. Anyway, my sources this week are the Sherlock Chronicles, and meta posts by TJLC bug-catcher-in-veridian-forest, Kinklock, Iwantthatbelstaffanditsoccupant, and Shinka. I also need to thank Leslie Vanetti for helping me refine how I talked about the symbolism of John's profession. I really didn't want to be perpetuating the idea that bi people are half one thing and half another. I really tried to get across that the main distinction is that when John is pretending to be a doctor, he's hiding part of who he is. When John is acting as an army doctor, he's embracing his entire self. I really hope I did that idea justice. I'm working on 2 scripts at once right now, and I'm not quite sure which one is going to be done first, but I'll be back sometime soon to talk about something related to the Reichenbach fall. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and get ready to believe!